What's up, everybody? Welcome to episode 100. Oh, not 100. It's only 32. It's only 32, man. I'm like jumping into the future, like, Rick and Morty style, right? 132.
Yeah.
We will get to 132 people eventually.
In another dimension in Rick and Morty, there
That's
is
right.
a spoiler alert podcast that is over 132 episodes.
That's right. It might take us 5 years, but we will get there. We will totally get there.
Yeah, because it's been like, what, a month since we last got together? Mostly because you've been out of town on vacation. How was that?
Yeah. Oh, man, it was great. Man, we went over, we actually went to just San Francisco first. And then kind of went up to Sonoma, but then we did the whole national park thing for like the next 4 or 5 days, hiking and camping and doing all that outdoorsy stuff with Yosemite and Kings and Sequoia, those big fucking trees and shit. And then headed back to the Bay Area and just visited a ton of people after that in South Bay.
Except for me.
I know, dude. If I could have managed, I didn't even stop by Twitch. Okay, so like I didn't have a meal to even eat, like to choose where I wanted to eat because I had so many people to visit. So that's what happens when I go to the Bay Area,
That's a
dude.
tragedy, man. Going to San Francisco and not getting to like eat the food there. It's so good.
No, I mean we ate plenty of food. It's just I didn't get to really choose, like just have a.
He was saying his schedule was busy.
Yeah, it was like a schedule. It was like crazy.
He had a schedule.
It's just kind of funny because I just went to San Francisco for 4 days myself, and that's all I did was eat for 4 days.
Yeah. Where'd you end up eating? Man. Where'd you end up eating?
We went to Chinatown. We had some Chinese food. We went to something called the Beach Chalet. It was amazing. I got my aunts gave us some gift cards, and we spent like $200 having all sorts of lobster and steak. It was
nice.
So
Serve and serve. That's
we went
good
all
stuff.
There's a place in Chinatown. It's like a what do you call it? A bun place. What are they called?
Yes, dude. I was about to talk about this, but keep going. What's the name of it? What's the name of it?
I don't know the name of it, but if you go in there, there are pictures of Bill Clinton everywhere.
Oh, okay. Maybe this is a different place.
Went there once in 1995. He stopped by there and got a fucking fun, and they have not let it go for fucking 20 years.
Well, I ate at this place called Tomy in Mountain View or like on Castro, and like everybody just talks about Steve Jobs like going there one time, and that's kind of like why it's all popular and shit. And it's like everybody just keeps talking about Steve Jobs went to this one place. I'm like, okay, guys, it's okay. It's like kind of crazy. But no, there's this bun place I like totally got addicted to, or at least all of us got addicted to, called 85 degrees Celsius. Have you ever heard of that?
No.
Yeah, this is like really. It's like I think it's actually a Taiwanese bakery, but it's nice. It's like modernized and super nice looking, and they have all kinds of different. But they have like all these Asian Chinese buns, but then they have all these fusion. Like there's this thing that looks like a pizza almost. Like it's got like bacon and ham and shit on it and stuff. But they have all kinds of really chocolate buns and all these things that are in this Asian style. So it was really, really good. Should try it out. I think it's in LA too. It's not just in the Bay Area. So but anyways, it was really nice.
Your whole family? It was you and your whole family?
Yeah. Me and the whole family went, and I tried to do zero work, which I almost accomplished. I mean, I had to check like Discord every once in a while or Twitter, but for the most part, I did nothing. And there's like so much going on right now, especially in Hearthstone and Overwatch, that it was painful coming back. Yet, like like you
were in the hockey game.
Yeah,
like you were sitting in the penalty box and you're like watching everybody else play. Yeah,
I freaking get back and it's like holy crap, there was a lot going on. So
so it's been a little bit since Glow has released and everything, but I think that's all right because it gives people time to watch it. So just throwing it out there, guys, for those of you who have never seen this show, this is called Spoiler Alert. We usually go over this just because the format of the show is important, and which that everybody here hopefully has seen Glow, the television show about female wrestlers on Netflix. If you haven't, you probably want to get out of here because we're going to be talking about the show in its entirety. That means spoilers included. It's just going to be an open, friendly discussion, pretty much about anything in and around the show Glow. And with us is SpectrumDominus. He's a buddy of mine, also broadcaster on Twitch. He is sort of what I consider to be, if there's anything that has to do with wrestling and I want to know anything about it, I just go to Spectrum and talk to him because he is a diehard fan. He has 1,000 T-shirts for 1,000 different wrestlers, and goes to the events.
How many T-shirts do you have, Spectrum? How many T-shirts do you actually have?
I didn't count it up, but I would, if I was to estimate, I'd say I probably have about 50-ish.
Oh
T-shirts.
wow!
Yeah, with like different, yeah.
I guess the real question.
To give you an idea, we actually watched WrestleMania this year at Ella's house, and I had a different T-shirt for every match. Every match, I changed T-shirt into someone that was fighting in that match, and then took a picture from my social media in who I was supporting in that match. So I mean, I was able to every match I had at least one person in that match.
So were you wearing a John Cena T-shirt when he proposed to Naked?
I was.
Okay, all right.
You think I'm joking? Like it's not.
Hardcore,
yeah,
man.
it's basically if you ever had a friend that you don't do an activity unless you're with that friend. Like, you just know they like it so much that it makes it fun for you. That's kind of the thing. Like, I don't watch wrestling. I used to watch wrestling when I was like a kid, right? Like a teenager, a little bit.
Like you're supposed to.
Like you're supposed to. Some of us grew up into adults and kept watching. But no, like I would probably not. I mean, I could watch wrestling and enjoy it, but I don't like go out of my way, Monday nights to watch Monday Night Raw or anything like that.
Not a hardcore.
I watch Twitter and I watch people freak out about fucking
it's always twinding, right?
Twinding.
It's very twindy. No, it's always trending. Like every time I know that wrestling's on, I just look at my Twitter trends for you, and it's it's like so and so did this. So I'm just like, oh, what's going on? No, but I watch wrestling primarily with Spectrum just because he knows everything. So it's like having Wikipedia right next to you, that you can kind of go, hey, why is that a thing? And it's like, oh, well, these guys used to fight these guys, and then they betrayed that guy, and then I can get the whole history. So I'm like, oh, now this is way more interesting. So
nowadays, I mean, there's a combination of like that old generation, or at least the ones that are still alive, right? That keep making these cameos, especially at WrestleMania. So it's actually cool whenever we can do that. It makes me miss it too. So, but anyways, getting back to Glow, right?
Yeah, so back to Glow. So now we can talk about the show Glow. Allison Brie's tits. Let's start there.
Oh my God.
I feel like it's a natural place.
They did shove it in our face twice within the first 20 minutes. So.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like if we're gonna talk about Glow, we should talk about what brought us into the show right off the bat.
Didn't we have like a heated argument about whether or not she showed her tits in another movie like last time?
Yes, we did.
Yes,
we did.
And then we know how much of a connoisseur that Ellohime actually is. So
I feel like I don't know. Allison Brie this is going to be super. Listen, this is like the Superman.
This is a sexist episode.
Yes, this is a sexist.
As we talk about it, an empowering show about women wrestlers. Yeah, of course.
There's got to
be. There's got to be some. Okay, and I don't know. Allison Brie, I have been attracted to her since I saw her on Community, right?
Yeah,
I mean, I think everybody was like, oh my God, she's the hottest fucking thing. And then she only got hotter in Mad Men. When you get her all dressed up, all like dolled up in the 60s and stuff, like, important businessman. And then I'm like, you're super hot. But it's like, I don't know. There's been this thing about her getting naked and stuff. People have been waiting for this for like, some people have been waiting a long time to see Allison Brie naked.
It's an event, right?
It's an event. It is. It is an event.
Should you have a bonus clause for this? I mean, if it's such
honestly,
an event.
like it was cool and all, but Betty Gilpin, who played like the other main star of the show, I feel like I would have liked to see her tits more.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh,
maybe
man.
in that show, I get what you're saying in that show, but I feel like I don't know. I feel like Allison Brie, like maybe she waited too long. Like maybe just wait. I think they're still hot. Like I think it's super hot. But like it's not like Community.
Well, here's the thing.
The same tits
here's the thing with
Allison Brie on Community.
Well, the thing about Allison Brie with me in Glow, at least when because I had
Charlotte Rampling showed her tits in swimming pool when she was like in her 60s, and that was awesome. So there is no wrong time to get naked.
I don't know if it has anything to do with the tits or not, but I don't know if this affected you. But for me with Allison Brie, is like I had the same. Going into it, I had the same feelings about Allison Brie. Like she's super hot and cute and everything she's ever done, because she's always been made up. But in this series, it's like seeing a superstar like no makeup. It's like seeing Mila Kunis with no makeup, right? It's like, whoa, okay, maybe you're not quite as hot, whenever you don't have makeup. And there's nothing against, girls.
We're going down like a really dark road here, man.
Yeah. So,
not even bothering to talk about her performance.
Yeah.
I'm sure we'll get to
that. She was great.
She was great.
No, but my initial reaction was just kind of like, she just looks so different, and she actually, I felt like she was a completely different person. So I don't know, maybe seeing her naked had the same like effect for you. It's just kind of like, oh, that's not Alison Brie. That's not what I envisioned.
It was, the tone of the show was a lot more serious than the trailers, let on, which I liked. I liked that a lot. So her character is kind of like tragic, like she's down on her luck. Yeah. She's depressed, she has no, like, her fucking one drive in life is to be an actor, and of course that's not working out because Hollywood's a fucking meat grinder for people like that. So when I went into it, I was expecting Alison Brie from Community, like peppy, upbeat, like super good on the comedic timing and shit, but like it wasn't like that at all. She's like she's pretty, there are some funny bits, but her character is very grounded and serious, which I totally dug.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, she didn't look the same at all. I'm right there with you, ChanManV. In fact, when I was watching it, I went, is that Alison Brie? Right? And then I was like, look, I had to like kind of squint. Like you have to kind of be like, Alison Brie, because she looks like thinner in the face. I don't know if she lost weight for the role or something like that, but she looks
she
like,
might have. Yeah,
I don't know, but it's actually a tribute to the show. I mean, I feel like she looked exactly how she was supposed to.
Exactly. They were trying to make her look every woman plain. They were letting Liberty Bell be the gorgeous one that everyone wanted, and she was supposed to be that one that everyone looked at and said, I guess I'd have sex with you. And
the girl next door, right? Yeah, kind of thing.
So
yeah.
Well, they make that joke a lot in the show. They are like, I can't tell if you're hot or not. Like, I can't tell if it's like some days I'm like, some days I'm like, no, like that's and I feel like it's super accurate. Like that's exactly how I felt about it.
Yeah.
But anywho, I digress off of Alison Brie and her hotness. I just wanted to get out of the
show.
The one thing before we move on from the tits, the one thing that I found a little weird though, and this is serious. This isn't as much joking as like I said, they threw that out twice in the first episode. Nothing for the remainder of the show.
Yeah.
That's it.
That was to bring you in. That was to bring
it really was. Sure. I thought, this is going to be different. I didn't expect this. And then it just disappeared, and I was like, okay, I'm glad it wasn't that the whole time. I thought that was going to be a problem.
It would be an unjust fucking portrayal of this real life story if it was just all about sexualizing the women.
Yeah, they could have too, like many times.
And it was like she got naked in a fucking, like in a gym.
Motel.
It wasn't even like it wasn't even like a fucking thing. It was just.
Well, I mean, one of them was a sex scene, right? Like
yes, that's true.
Yeah. But but overall, I agree with that. I think Alison Brie was I think she was easily the best actor in the series, right? Is there anybody you thought was better?
It had a lot of fucking eye-opening performances, like the girl that plays the wolf girl. I forget her name.
Oh
yeah.
She had like a whole episode dedicated to her I wouldn't call it a disorder, her anxiety that keeps her in character all the time. I thought that was really cool. And honestly, Mark Maron fucking stole the show. I've always known he's a talented dude. He has one of the best podcasts like in existence. Mm-hmm. Really good TV show on IMDb, or was it indie something. But like in this, he's just fucking like kind of terrifying and also like repulsive but sympathetic in a way.
Know, right.
Like he's a complete asshole, but like by the end of the season, you give a shit about him, like
he's like a complete asshole, but like a cool guy at the same time.
I would hang out with him. I'd hang out with him.
Yeah, exactly.
He's got that like tragic old man. He's got that like tragic old man thing.
Like one of those
like he might have been a
Hollywood
good guy.
types.
Like he might have been a good guy at one point, but like over the years, he's just been like kicked so much that now he's just kind of bitter, and he's just like, whatever. So he's still got that like soft side to him, but then it's like overwrit by the intense need to just like make jokes and kind of like, I don't know, keep these women in line and be sort of ruthless with them. It's kind of weird because sometimes he's ruthless and sometimes he's not. And he's more ruthless with other people than he is with others. Like with her, I feel like he's just like brutal sometimes. Like absolutely brutal with, Alison Brie's character. But, like he doesn't really put that much into the other characters. But you can tell it's because he likes her kind of the most, like.
Yeah. Because she
like
challenges him.
Tough love.
She's always like butting heads with him and not taking his shit, basically.
Yeah. So I think that there are certain actors and back to your question, Chan, that did better than others. I've seen this guy. What's his name? Mark Maron.
Mark Maron.
Yeah. See, I've only seen him in like passing, like through Netflix or whatever. There's like a show that he has on there, but I don't know what he does at all outside of this show. This is the first thing I've seen of his.
He's a podcaster. He's like one of the first. Like he did a lot of like not so much stand-up comedy, like he does more monologuing, I guess. You know,
he's got a good voice for sure.
Yeah. And I don't know. I just thought that he did a really excellent job, and I was like, wow, this guy's like, I don't know. He was like top tier in this thing as far as I was concerned. So Alison Brie obviously did really well. But I feel like I think he was better. The show.
Okay, yeah. I think he was really good too. Yeah, especially their interaction, I think was great. But the other lead, the Betty, Gilpin, I think it was.
Betty Gilpin, yeah.
I didn't like her.
Also from American Gods.
Was she?
Is the
she's the wife. She's the wife,
of
right?
Cook.
Yeah, she was the wife. I totally didn't realize that until now.
She's really good at playing a drunk. She does it in this show, and she did it in like her first scene in American Gods. She's like wasted at the funeral. She does a really good drunk, like a really convincing drunk.
Yeah, I mean, I guess
she's got that drunk housewife look to her, though. Like, especially in this. There's
something about her like wrestling that bothered me, though. She just didn't look anything like a wrestler. Whenever she went to go do anything physical, it was just like, that just doesn't look right at all. And she's supposed to be like the main character, or at least the star of just Glow, right? And watching Alison Brie do it, it looked realistic at least, right? But then when I was watching Betty Gilpin do it, I was just like cringing every time I'd watch.
Well, how much of that is because she's supposed to be sort of bad at it because she's just there to be sort of the pretty face.
But at the end, she's not supposed to. At the end, she's supposed to be.
You feel like at the end she was still bad. But I mean, let's be honest. I don't think a lot of these women in real life, when they did it, were necessarily the most trained, athletes that there were.
Actors first.
Yeah, exactly. The thing that I was okay. I get what you're saying, Chan, but I was okay with it in the context that a lot of these women had only been practicing, for a couple of weeks maybe before their first show and had no background in wrestling whatsoever. So it didn't bother me when any of these women were really like bad at it because I feel like that was kind of what it was in its real life iteration.
I was just gonna say, if you watch the original Glow,
I remember the original.
That was not real wrestling either. So I mean, it was you watched it going, oh my gosh! If you thought wrestling was real, if you were one of those people that were like, is it real or is it not? And back in the '80s, there were still those people around. If you watch Glow,
it's performance art, it's entertainment.
Took it away from you. You were like, okay, clearly
this is fake.
Clearly this is.
It's not even close to being hitting each other. Or I know what you mean. The moves were so simple too back then, but just a little thing. Yeah, I mean, it wasn't like a huge thing for me, but I don't know. I like towards the end, I just would have liked for them to have trained for like a few months. And for it to actually look pretty good. But in the context of the show, and they're going to have more seasons or whatever, it could have, it still could have been just day one. So maybe it's not supposed to look that great.
Well, you want to know what bothered me more than anything is what did they call her on here? Mount Fiji or something?
That Machu Picchu was her.
Machu Picchu, yeah.
Yeah, Mount Fiji is the real
girl. Is the real one. Okay. Machu Picchu. Yeah, I thought that she was horrible. And not like, I mean, I guess I shouldn't say horrible. She just wasn't, I didn't feel like she felt comfortable as an actress in the show. She seemed kind of stiff sometimes. And I'm like, why are they harping on this girl so much? Like, why are they making her out to be like the sympathetic, everybody loves kind of character? Like, they really pushed that. It was kind of ham-fisted to me during the show. I was like, man, they're really focusing on this girl and like making her out to be like the heart and soul of everything. And then I watched the documentary and come to find out that, like, that she is that person. But I feel like in trying to they made this such a tribute to her. You know, like, this character obviously was supposed to be Mount Fiji, right? Mm-hmm. Which, if you guys watch the documentary, she ends up being a really tragic figure in the fact that she had everything going for her when this was still a thing. And then when it ended, she had no more opportunities. And she had wrestled so hard that she had hurt herself. It's a whole thing in the documentary, the real life character. So it made sense afterwards. Like, oh, that's why they're trying to make this character so like likable and lovable and like the heart and soul of everything, because the real life character was that, and because the real life character ended up with sort of a shit hand in the end, you know. Mm-hmm. So you could tell that these people were trying to make that character, you know, like, I don't know, I just felt like it was.
Well, they had to. I mean, Mount Fiji was the face of Glow for a while, so to not have her be, you know, a big part, you know, obviously they wrote it so that Alison Brie's character and, you know, Betty Gilpin's character would be much bigger just for entertainment's sake. But because I'm not even sure who they were. Who are they supposed to be at Spectrum? Like
Americana and Colonel Neochia.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. I might not have been following Glow that early, but yeah, Mount Fiji in the end was like the face of Glow. So in fact, like, it would have been interesting if they would have just found somebody that could have carried the series that was Mount Fiji. I think that would have been an interesting approach too.
Yeah, I don't think. Okay, I take back that I said she was horrible. I think she was all right. I think they could have had a better actress in there for that part. I just felt like she was a little stiff. Maybe you guys agree or disagree. I don't know. What did you guys think of her as like an actress? Like,
I can see what you're saying. I don't necessarily disagree with what you're saying. I guess I kind of wrote it off for she was kind of trying to be that way almost, as the daughter who wasn't allowed to, and you know, she was shy and in the corner, and this was her legacy, and yet she wasn't good at it, and that whole, I just kind of looked at it from that angle that she was. But I see what you're saying. If I separate it and say you could have had a better actress still act that, you're not wrong. But I was able to just kind of piece that stiffness into the character, I guess, and not really think about it too much myself.
Yeah.
Well, when you guys went into watching this series, did you think it was going to be a fairly accurate portrayal of the
I didn't know original? It was real. I didn't know it was actually based on an actual thing. I didn't know Glow was actual.
Okay, yeah.
So until I saw the documentary, I was like, oh shit, this is based on a true story, or loosely, you know.
Yeah.
I didn't know how accurate it was going to be, and then after watching it, I realized that it wasn't super accurate. Right. There was certain aspects of it, but
it was a dramatization.
It was very much a dramatization of what was going on. But it was neat to see certain aspects of it, especially when you did watch all of Glow when you know, growing up. I'd seen so much of it. It was neat to see certain pieces, Easter eggs they throw out there for current wrestling fans and Glow wrestling fans and stuff like that were around.
Like, what were some of those, Spectrum? Like, if you don't mind.
Well, like for example, the wrestler that trained all of the women for this real life wrestler was Chavo Guerrero. Yeah. Cool. Guerrero is probably one of the most famous wrestling families out there. Most people know his brother, his Eddie. Uncle better, Eddie Guerrero, but Chavo trained them all, and then in the gym that they trained in the show was Chavo's gym. So that was like a little Easter egg for Chavo Guerrero. That's not the real name of the gym they trained at. It was just something there for Chavo. Her sister, the Machu Picchu's brothers, those are two real wrestlers. Or one was Brodus Clay or Tyrus, if you watch him in TNA now. The other one is Carlito. And there was time that they're at the house and Carlito comes from the back and he's carrying an apple. And anyone who watched knows Carlito from his time in WWE. He was Carlito Caribbean Cool, and he would come out and he'd bite an apple and he'd spit it into people's face. I spit in the face of people that were cool. And that, I mean, just putting the apple in his hand, everyone freaked out about that. Just seeing Carlito standing there holding an apple. So it was just little Easter eggs like that they put in there. Mm-hmm. And I don't even know how many people realize how many wrestling personalities were actually in the show. There's like 10 or 12 different wrestlers or wrestling personalities that made cameo appearances throughout the show. So I mean, it was a lot of Easter eggs thrown out there for current wrestling fans and stuff.
See, I would have never noticed any of that. Like, I didn't notice the apple thing. Most of the stuff you're mentioning, I was like,
I knew Chavo, but that's about all I saw actually.
Well, Guerrero's actually big around where we live. Because I don't know if they lived here or grew up here or nearby or something. Actually, Florida has a lot
NXT
of wrestlers
there too.
I was going to say Florida has a lot of that. We've had Bobby Heenan and Hulk Hogan, and I mean the area's always had something. Even Cena is semi close to us. So,
but you know, like right there in Brandon, that Chicken Bones. Right there, you know what I'm talking about, Anthony. The Chicken Bones. It's a restaurant. It's actually run by the Guerrero family.
Oh, really?
So,
wow.
Yeah, like that's like one of their restaurants is like right there. It's just it's delicious food, but it's just kind of like a little like hole in the wall. It's like healthy chicken eating next to a gym, basically.
Yeah, my brother and I used to go to independent shows around here at the Armory, and no one wrestling shows with a bunch of people you'd never heard of. And every once in a while, we just get a Hector Guerrero appearance. I guess they were short. Nice, they call up and, hey, Hector, we need another body. So yeah, they're definitely in the area.
So back to the show a little bit. We kind of talked about the actresses, a little bit back and forth. Was there anybody else that you guys thought like stuck out? Anybody that came to mind? Anybody that we hadn't talked about yet that you guys kind of want to discuss? Because I feel like I've covered pretty much who I want to talk about.
We've talked about 3 people.
I know, but that's like
that's all I want to talk about.
That's really all I don't know. The rest were kind of fillers. That I think the show suffered in that way is that I didn't build a connection with very many characters. I think I built the connection with the characters I was supposed to build a connection with, and then everybody else seemed like fill-ins. Like they're just kind of there to push these characters forward. Does that make sense?
I'd like to get your guys' opinions on the welfare queen.
Oh, yeah. She's sitting on the chair just like with her remote control. I think I have a picture of that. That's hilarious.
And I'll explain afterwards, but I was just wondering, did anything come off about her acting? If there she is on screen right now. Did anything come off? Did anything excite you or did dislike? Or I just kind of, this is a personal thing for me here.
Well,
okay.
I mean,
what, are you on welfare?
Are you?
Yes.
Throwing those food stamps at people.
She is my queen.
She is my queen. She is your queen. No, for her, it was just to be frank, it was just the black element, right? With her, and they had the whole KKK thing, and that was, I forget if that was actually based on something real or not, but that seemed to be a big part of just the just the shock factor, right? And making Glow something entertaining and something that's potentially engaging.
Yeah, it's I mean, I feel like wrestling is or was one of the few places where it's like comedy, right? It's like racism and comedy. It has a place there because I think we need to be able to joke about some things even when they're super serious, generalizations, stereotypes, stuff like that. But then when you got wrestling, you can have whole personas based around that, right? But I think the fact that most people, 99% of the people that know it's not real, accept that as a character and a generalization, a stereotype, sort of with a grain of salt. Like I can see where there's not really a place for that today, like that, like welfare queen.
Surprised.
I know.
Yeah.
But the thing is,
WWE champion is
yeah.
that's the whole storyline that's currently going on.
Well, okay, but the thing is that like I feel like it's acceptable in the context of wrestling because wrestling is an exaggeration of so many things, not just racism. That when you exaggerate racism, it kind of fits in with everything because everything's exaggerated. Does that make sense?
Well, I mean, let's just look at Conor McGregor and Floyd Mayweather right now. I mean, that little promotional thing. I mean, I don't know if you saw it or not.
Dance for me, boy.
Yeah, but, I mean, well, no, it was just that whole like. Conor McGregor making these black jokes basically, like during.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. He said, "Dance for me, boy." That's what he said.
Okay, I mean, he said multiple.
Time
things.
Magazine.
Yeah, it wasn't just
Time Magazine. That was his quote: "Dance for me, comma boy," and it was like. Oh.
So now the whole thing is that Mayweather's like, "I'm fighting for all the blacks now." I mean, it's turned into like this type of thing, even in boxing.
Well, the reason I
didn't even know that.
Yeah.
So why do you ask, Anthony? Why do you ask?
The reason I ask is because she's the only one of them that's not actually an actor. She's a wrestler. Really? That is, people know her by the name of Karma or Awesome Kong. There's a picture of her there. She's an actual wrestler. And that's what people know her as, not as that welfare queen, as this big beast of plastic, of course, but this big beast of a woman, and that's what people know Karma as. And she was this I'm welfare with that on screen now. That's what you get. And so I just kind of wanted to know because she wasn't an actress. She's a wrestler, and she's the only wrestler in the bunch.
Well, to say she's not an actress, I feel like all wrestlers are actors.
Okay, and that's fair. That's fair.
But no, I get what you're saying.
I'm sure you've seen things with wrestlers starring in them and went, "Oh my gosh, I wish they would have put a real actor in that."
Yes, yeah, like every time I see Goldberg in anything. Anything Rock was in pre-Walking Tall, Yeah, exactly. Yeah. No, it's funny because I definitely felt like when it came to the wrestling part of it and the persona part of it, her character started to kind of shine more. When she's in the ring going, "Oh, I'm welfare queen, blah blah blah." Oh, like you don't do nothing because that, like she really started to get into that character. You could tell she was very comfortable in that. Yeah. I feel like she was one of the more colorful. I hit not as a pun. One of the more colorful characters on the show.
We were just like everything today.
I was like, oh man, now I'm gonna. I gotta say, not a pun. Anywho, but yeah, no, I feel like she was definitely more animated once she was in the ring than outside of it. But that's interesting. I had no idea that she was a real wrestler. And that's why I'm glad we have you on the show, because I would have never known. I would have kept thinking she was just, all these people were just actresses. Now, I did know that they had kind of sprinkled in wrestling talent throughout the show.
Right, and there's quite a bit in there. There's actually I think 10 or so, 2, 4, 6, 8, 9 different real wrestlers that played parts in the show at some point.
Okay, let me ask you something. Because Anthony, you're the wrestling buff here. Okay,
I guess.
Yeah, no, you guess. No,
you clearly are.
Yeah, clearly. Yeah. What did you think about the overall representation of the show? Did you like it? Were you entertained? Was it more annoying for you to watch it because you're such a big fan of wrestling? Because sometimes when I watch things around the things, like if I watch a movie on video games, I always end up getting bothered because I always feel like they don't represent it well, or like they do weird things, or the people that made it don't understand the culture, right? Do you feel like the people that made this understand the wrestling culture? Do you feel like it was good enough for the hardcore fans, since you're such a hardcore fan? So you think it's something more casual?
Absolutely. I think it was very well done. I did find it very easy to watch, very entertaining for me. I feel like anything, I like to allude back to the early superhero movies. I'm a huge comic book fan too. Ellohime knows this. I have 90 long boxes of comics in my garage. I used to own a comic book shop, and they used to cater to the non-comic book fans with movies. They used to make movies and say, okay, well, comic book fans are just a small niche. We need to get the other people in. And then eventually they realized comic books are a great format. There's a reason why they've succeeded so long. Our stories are great. Let's just make them. People will show up. And now they've started to make comic book movies and I feel like this is what they did. They didn't say obviously they had to over dramatize it, and they, but they didn't have to make it for other people. They could make it for us. They could put the Easter eggs in for us people that don't know it will miss it and it won't matter.
Right.
And yet they'll get it because it's a good story. They don't have to change it for the common man, for the everyman. So they did a great job of giving us what we want. It represented in the sense of what we imagine Glow to have been like. It represented it very well. It gave us the pieces of the puzzle, the things like the glow wrap. Now, the glow wrap was not the same as the real glow wrap, right. But they made everyone that watched Glow knows about the glow wrap. They made sure they gave us a little allusion to that. They threw in a bunch of current wrestling personalities, either wrestlers or managerial type people, that we could all say, hey, that's Brooke Hogan. Hey, that's, Johnny Mundo. That's, and the Ellohimes would be like, I just thought he was an actor. He was just a guy there. So it gave us, maybe they were worried that we wouldn't like it as much. And so they threw that in there so that every, half an episode, we were like, oh, and we got back up. And maybe that's what happened to me. I don't know. I didn't really analyze it in that sense, but there was enough to keep me going and enjoy it. I really did enjoy it.
So the people that they had there, was a familiarity thing.
There was a lot of familiar faces in there. Yeah.
Okay, so as you're watching through and you're enjoying the story, they're keeping you engaged, a hardcore fan, just basically by showing you different wrestlers and little things. So that kept you in.
Essentially, what you got in episode 1 with Allison Bree's tits, we got with a bunch of wrestlers.
The other 9 episodes.
and I get it. I get 100% what you're saying now. Thank you for putting it in such terms that I can understand.
Sometimes it takes me a while to get there. Exactly. But I figure it out eventually.
That's interesting because I figured like with something like this, it's there's always a balance, right, between the dramatization and between trying to sort of stay true. And I feel like they had a really, really, really strong balance between the two. I think it felt like a show, but after watching the first season, when you're done, you feel like you could easily see these characters being, not far off from their real life counterparts in a lot of ways. And then when you watch the documentary, you're only cemented in that feeling.
So Nick, with the, obviously the series and what we see with a lot of TV series, with the first season, it's usually created in a way where a lot of times it's just made to be a standalone, right? Just because of how the framing is and just the structure and just how things are built. How do you think this first season is, and do you think that the second season's? Do you think it sets up for a good second season?
Yeah, I was hooked. I want to see more of the dramatization of these characters for sure.
We going down the route where we're going to end up getting into the just like the tragedy in the end, I guess with this. Because
they're going to have to acknowledge it at some point,
right? Yeah.
Well, like the tragedy, even when you watch the documentary, you're not really sure what happened.
It just ends.
I know, but here's the thing is that the way they talk about it in the documentary, and maybe Spectrum will know more, the way they talk about in the documentary when they're talking about it ending, it's all very ambiguous. It was like the funding was dropped, but nobody knows why the funding was dropped. But the rumor was that the guy that was putting his money into it, his wife at the time didn't like it. And so he pulled out because his wife was disapproving. But I don't know if you guys got this vibe from the documentary, but it was like people had things they wanted to say, but weren't saying it about it. Like there was some behind the scenes kind of shit, some shady shit that went down that ended this. Like I truly believe that if we were to really get down and figure out what happened, this guy must have slept with one of these actresses in the thing, and that pissed off the wife. It had to do with the sexualization of these women. It had to, because even when they talk about the one guy, the manager guy, in the documentary, they're constantly he's a womanizer, he's disgusting, blah, blah, blah. The only person that likes him is the Mount Fiji girl because she loved him from the beginning, right? So it's I feel like the only reason that this idea died, which by the way, how fucking brave of these women to go into something completely new. How brave it is for these people to try to make a whole new type of entertainment off of a genre that is working. I mean, wrestling works. People like wrestling. But like to take an idea like that and try to run with it and have such blind faith from these women, like that is super brave. And I think that's awesome. But it's weird because I feel like at the end they got shafted, and I think they got shafted by, just the management. I think the management just I don't know if you guys feel the same, but I just feel like something sexual happened there that made everything just shut down.
I think I agree with you. I feel like that the way it just suddenly happened too is probably indicative of something happening. What I can't believe is that nobody just picked it up. You know what I mean? Like, nowadays we do have the female division or the divas, like previously, right? And along the way we've had female wrestlers and that kind of sprinkled in, just throughout just 10, 20 years now, but never like Glow, right? And it's just this kind of separate thing. And Glow, I didn't know how successful it was, to be honest. Like I always had this impression that it just wasn't that successful, even though it was on TV. But it sounds like it was fairly successful in terms of ratings, where in the time slot it was at. So why didn't anybody else pick it up? Like you could have just reached out to all these other females and just continued it, right? You could have even bought the brand from the guy, I'm sure.
It actually was bought.
Was it? Okay.
Yeah, it was bought in 2001.
Oh, that's later. Okay.
Yeah, and they tried to revive it, and it just didn't work. And to say, as far as not doing a similar thing, there's actually 2 or 3 other, like right now, what is it, Sparkle and
I've heard of Sparkle. That's true.
Shine. Both are all women's wrestling. So the evolution has happened, but it's not campy. It's them trying to be
legit
the
wrestlers.
WWE with just women. But they have evolved. It has changed. It was bought out in 2001 by Ursula Hayden or something like that.
Why did that take so long?
Yeah, exactly. You feel like that's like 10 years later.
At the height of its popularity, it looked like it was kind of going up, right? Like things were heading up, and then whatever happened.
Yeah, no, and that I don't know. They had 4 seasons, and a lot of people don't even realize that they had 4 seasons. There were quite a few episodes. There were 4 seasons worth, and then it just stopped. And like you said, you watched the documentary. I didn't actually watch the documentary. I honestly did not know there was one, so I will be watching that after this. But I did watch some interviews done by a YouTuber. He did 2 sets of interviews, one with the people that did not like the Glow series on Netflix, and then ones that did, but the original Glow people. So the wrestlers did an interview. The guy's name, it's a Wrestling with a Regret. His name is Brian Zane, and he did it with the original women that were in Glow, and the ones that were not happy about it, they were wondering, well, why weren't we consulted? Why weren't we brought in? We would have been nice cameos and this and that. And they kind of sound a little, some of it sounds a little whiny. It's like, okay, you just wanted another paycheck. They made a great show, accept it. And they do acknowledge some of that, but it's like they also not happy with the you're talking about the womanizing manager and all. The women that he talked to on the interview said there was no coke parties, there was no all this stuff that was all dramatization for the show. It did not happen in the same way. Yes, we all stayed in the same house, hotel things and stuff, but it wasn't like they made it seem like on the show. And so I don't know why. 4 years and then it just stopped. But like you said, it's probably more based on the young guy. I don't remember what his character's name was, but the guy who's fronting it, the money, it's probably based more on him than the Mark Maron character.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Because from what everyone was talking about, they had no problem with him. He wasn't a womanizing druggy, guy like they made him out to be. At least on the one interview I heard. I didn't hear the second interview yet. That's another thing I have to watch after the fact. But
yeah, it's weird. But I think whether you watch that or this or whatever, I feel like we all can agree that these women did not get treated like with respect at the end of all this. Like I think they just suddenly lost their job, which they put a lot of time and faith into, and probably over bullshit reasons. But it's weird because I don't even know if something like this could even work today, because it's almost like, because it wasn't legitimized right away, it almost like goes the route of like roller derby, right? Where like it's like a roller derby thing, which is fun to watch and is great, but it's never quite taken off. It almost the same thing happened with like, you know, like the old Spike TVs, like the roller derby,
or the women,
you know, like the
and,
yeah. It's
thing,
like
whatever.
Yeah, it's like I think if it was going to kick off, it would have. I don't think it can kick off anymore. Like, I don't think you can have like a women's only league anymore and it really succeed. Not that I'm saying it can't happen. I'm just saying that like it's tragic in a lot of senses because it looked like it was something that was really going to stick. And I like the fact that they didn't try to make it WWE. It was its own like silly, you know, not so serious, you know, like more of a fun, upbeat kind of wrestling scene. And I feel like that was the time it was going to work if it was going to.
Yeah.
And since it fell through, it makes it infinitely harder for any other startup after it. Does that make sense?
With the landscape of women's wrestling today, it does not have
not
a
even
place.
Close. Yeah.
There's nowhere it fits. You can go back 4 or 5 years, and we had divas, but even the divas were attempting to be real wrestlers, and that came off of, and I like to give the nod to the knockouts. Everyone likes to talk about the women's revolution is one of the things that are going on today, and we've got the greatest women's wrestlers in the history of wrestling currently wrestling today in the WWE, and it's great, it's phenomenal. But they like to give credit to them, but really the credit goes to the knockouts division on TNA, because before the knockouts division came up 10 years ago or so, WWE Divas were doing bra and panties matches and pillow fights. They were essentially a section of Glow inside WWE.
They were escorting, right? They were more escorting than they were wrestling.
Well,
right?
and they were used for valets, but there was the whole time where there was Kelly and Tori Wilson, and they were all former models that were there to literally go in the ring and get their dresses torn off of them, so they were standing there in bra and panties. They were just there for the men to be like, whoo, yay! And it was kind of its own little section of Glow in the WWE. And then TNA, which is the rival company, if there is a rival company, WWE has no competition, but they're the closest thing to competition. They started taking women's wrestling seriously, and the Mickey James and the Gail Kims and the Karma, who's called Awesome Kong over there, they turned their division into serious wrestling, and they picked up some steam. And that's when WWE said, okay, we've got to start doing some women's wrestling. And that's when the Divas started becoming serious. And then this is second tier that just happened in the WWE, where they got rid of the title of Diva, got rid of the Divas belt, brought in the women's title, and brought in Charlotte Flair, Ric Flair's daughter, and all these legendary Paige and Becky Lynch and Sasha Banks and Bayley. That is just the epitome of they're as good as the men are in some cases. And there have been matches. Bayley versus Sasha Banks Iron Man match in NXT, that is considered better than 90% of the men matches have ever been. So now that we've gotten to that level where we consider those matches as real wrestling, and we don't walk out of the room to go get a drink when it comes on the TV, I don't see Glow or a thing of Glow ever fitting back. I think that the best you're going to find is something like a Shimmer, a Sparkle, or a Shine, where they eliminate the men from it, but it's still taken seriously as a sports entertainment thing.
Well, I think Glow, it's not going to be necessarily in wrestling, and it might not necessarily even have to do with women, but there is still a Glow idea out there. I mean, that will eventually get some steam, like, you know. And an example of this would have been, you remember when Vince McMahon did the football league, the XFL, yeah. I mean, it's like that type of thing.
I remember that.
I know, but it's like those type of ideas though. Like, there's definitely another idea that's basically trying to spin an entertainment type of angle on something that's maybe sports related, you know, and people, just that whole soap opera, just crazy dramatization that people love. I mean, it's proven. We've seen it. We've seen it in wrestling. We've seen it just generally in what people watch. And I know there's more ideas out there, and we'll probably see it. We just won't see it like here in women's wrestling necessarily. But one other thing too, Ello, is that like you said like, oh, what was that?
I was going to say that's interesting that you said that, because I didn't even think about it from that perspective. But there's another federation right now. It's called Lucha Underground, and they release their shows in seasons, and they are more soap opera based. Like their characters get killed off, and they're this guy buys the guy. It's very soap opera-y, and it's good wrestling, but it's very based around this person had sex with this person's brother, and it's very in that vein. And they could probably, if they really wanted to bring Glow back and take some cues from Lucha Underground, I'm not saying that they should, but if someone who owned it said, hey, maybe we go in this route, they could probably make it more soap opera based and less in the wrestling aspect, and that might work.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. That's my biggest thing is like, if you were to do this today, you can't go into it, in my opinion. I don't know shit about wrestling, but from an outside perspective, as somebody who's looking for entertainment, if I were to jump into this and try to create it, I would not try to create something that is going to compete with WWE or anybody else when it comes to actual like wrestling, right? When the actual like athleticism and art of wrestling, when it comes down to it, they've got that monopolized as far as I'm concerned. If I were to jump back in and start back Glow today, it would definitely be more of ham-fisted, silly, like lovable. The wrestling is there, but really you're mostly watching for the characters and their antics. Give them something that they aren't seeing on WWE. On WWE, it's so so serious, and the wrestling is so serious, and it's such a high level. Don't try to do what they're doing. Create the same kind of atmosphere, but do it in a different way. And that's kind of what they were doing anyways. Like when they first started.
Right.
That was their whole thing. But
yeah, they were before their time. They were before their time in a lot of ways, because there are things, and even back then, back when WWF was even not quite as commercialized as it is now, they were doing things that they don't, and they probably choose not to do anymore, like nowadays, just because of whatever, political or just backlash, just with how big, billion-dollar company it is now. Right now, I feel like there is opportunity to do a lot of just questionable things, like at least WWE would think was very, very questionable. I mean, any little thing these days with WWE that's like politically incorrect, or like one of their wrestlers saying something, I mean, it's like a huge no-no, in terms of the wrestlers. I mean, they'll fire people over it. Look at the whole Hulk Hogan thing, right? I mean, he had like this contract for like his brand in perpetuity, like forever, right? Like I think Vince signed him to some crazy contract, and then like once all that stuff happened with Hulk Hogan, he immediately was just like pulled from Hall of Fame. And I mean, they tried to remove Hulk Hogan from a lot of stuff, which was crazy, right? Like that's just insane. So in terms of just like what's possible, I mean, there's that KKK thing that happened in the show. I mean, along those lines, I mean, you could do some stuff that will generate a lot of talk and a lot of hype, and it would be more down the lines of the soap opera, angle right now, if you even wanted to. So yeah, anyways, what I'm trying to get at least is like the Glow was before its time in a lot of ways, and that's why it even got that much traction. It's because they were doing the raps. I mean, did WWF ever do like the Super Bowl shuffle rap like they used to do? I don't think they did, right? Yeah.
Well, I mean, I think that's probably the lamest part of it.
It's the lamest part. But at the time, the Chicago Bears like made a lot of segue with the Super Bowl shuffle. So it's just like, okay, let's just do it. Let's just throw it in there. A lot of stuff they did was lame, dude. Like a ton of it,
I will say that they did rhyming. I'm not gonna say they rapped. Okay, that's okay. I mean that's a stretch.
They did rhyming.
Okay, it's rhyming.
My name's Ello. I like to have fun. Here I go. I've got a gun. Like, and it's like, and they're like, yeah.
Like, that's awesome. We're laughing about it. That's how awesome it is.
But honestly, Ello, aside from the fact that you remember Mount Fiji, what else can you remember?
I don't remember any of this. I only know that because I watched the documentary. I never watched this as a kid.
As far as I knew, with Glow fan, they all remember the rap.
Yeah, that's.
Because it was the most ridiculous part of it. Like I don't know. What I remember of Glow was watching an old like VHS tape of Glow when I was hanging out with my buddy when I was like young, like 12 or 13. I was spending the night at his house, and he had this VHS of Glow, and it was the closest thing to pornography we could get. So we watched Glow as two horny teenagers. Like, wow, these women, they're so scantily clad. But that's as far as I know, as far as Glow. Before I even, watched the show, I didn't know much about it. But the whole rapping thing, I get why it's made them different. And I'm not saying it was a bad choice. I'm just saying I want to shoot myself every time I hear it. Like, that's all I'm saying. Okay. Is that I just am so annoyed by it.
We all know. Cringe.
Yeah. It's like cringe.
I gotta know. Have you heard the actual raps or just the one that was in the Glow?
No, in the documentary they do some of them. Oh man, they're like so campy and so cheesy.
It was the 80s, Ella. You have to remember that.
I know. I'm not getting on. I get it. I'm just saying I don't like it. I'm not saying that I don't understand it. I understand it. It's just still annoying.
It's one of those situations where if you try to show someone a movie today from the 80s that you love, Better Off Dead or something, they're like, what the heck? No, it's not. Like, yeah, it is. If you had heard those raps back then, you'd understand.
If those raps happen nowadays, let's just say the whole entire women's WWE roster all of a sudden did a rap like that, that would be all over social media.
Everyone would be like,
there'd be so many memes. There'd be so many.
I gotta agree. I gotta agree with Ello. I'd be like, what the fuck? Go put your wrestling gear on.
Maybe it's too serious now, but. They would never do it anyways.
Hi, my name is Stone Cold. I am wrestling because I am old. It's weird. It's just like so formulaic, like Humpty Dumpty.
We've had rapper wrestlers before. Like who were they? We've had like a number of them.
Yeah, R-Truth would be the current one that everyone knows.
Worse though than R-Truth.
Road Dogg did a lot of rapping back then. There was a rap battle recently, which the people in my stream, when we were talking about it, we actually watch live on stream. I watch Raw or SmackDown on my TV, and all my viewers watch at the same time. And we talk about it while it's on, and we were just like, it was abysmal. Now, across the internet, it was considered one of the greatest segments of the year, and we don't understand how. But we called it a poetry battle, not a rap battle, because it was just like there was no music. They were just like, hey man, didn't you used to be Kofi Kingston, man? Yeah, you were from Jamaica, man. What? No, you were Jamaican, man. I was just like, what the hell is going on here? This is ridiculous. Just because one of them dropped a line about a controversial out of the Page sex tape.
Yeah.
One of the wrestlers that was in the Page sex tape was in the rap battle. So the opponent said something to bring it up, essentially, not mentioning it, but just say you got to not make mistakes like he did. And because that one thing was dropped, everyone thought it was the greatest thing in the world. But it was terrible. It was just ridiculously bad. Rapping has no place in wrestling.
Well, no, see, here's the thing: is like. Wrestling to me, it's always this fine line between entertainment and cringe. And like certain things can happen and I'm like, that's awesome and that's hilarious and that's like so wrestling. Like for instance, like the Ultimate Warrior, when he used to get on those rants, those like crazy Ultimate Warrior rants, like, and then the sun will come down and I will be empowered with God's strength and I will smite you because I'm the Ultimate Warrior. But like that's shit's, it's like, it's that borderline cringe, but hilarious. And I feel like in wrestling, it's such a fine line between those two things. And so like, it's what separates from like Ultimate Warrior, his like iconic crazy fucking rants, right? His monologuing, which is considered, it's iconic now. Like people remember that shit. They love that shit. But like the difference between what he did and what Joe Schmo wrestler might have done on the mic are not far off. Like there's only like a few things different between this guy ranting and this guy ranting, but one of them's cringe and then one of them's amazing.
Yeah,
so it's like
that's
what I feel like when it comes to like anything in wrestling, whether it's rapping or whatever. It's like there's like this weird campy way to do it that's fun and acceptable, and then there's this. But it's like so close to the cringy way of doing it that a lot of times you get cringe instead of.
Well, I guess the question. So the question to you, Spectrum, is that do you think that it's too? Do you think wrestling right now is too much about the athleticism and not enough story? Because it is very, very heavily on the. I mean, there's obviously certain wrestlers at certain times that they focus on, and
you're
there's a
actually
storyline.
asking the wrong person in this case, because I'm the one person in my wrestling channel, and I'm the most important person, but I'm the voice. But that doesn't mean that I don't get in arguments with my people all the time about it. I like WWE. There is a huge community. I should say. The internet community in general tends to be about the indie stuff. They watch WWE as well, but that's not as good as this indie. That's not as good as New Japan. And I don't like that stuff. I'm all about the story. The wrestling's great, and I love a great wrestling match, but you can show me, and they try all the time. You can show me a great wrestling match between two guys I have no clue who they are, and I have no investment in it. And so this great wrestling match, I was like, all right, there's some cool moves, but I could care less. I'm going to go to the bathroom while this is on. When the next thing comes up with two people that are 90 years old, but I know them, I'll watch that no matter how bad it is because I'm invested. Right. So to your question, does it need to be less serious about the wrestling, more about the story? Absolutely, 100%. Heck, don't even give me one wrestling match a show and make it all story. That's a little bit of an exaggeration.
Yeah.
But that I want the story. I want that to be what it's about. I want them to do more. Now, the problem is Raw is now 3 hours a week.
Yeah.
SmackDown is 2 hours a week. NXT is an hour a week. 205 Live is an hour a week. And in a week where you have a pay-per-view, that's another 4 hours. Or if it's a major pay-per-view like this coming Sunday or next Sundays, that's going to be a 6-hour event. So you're watching wrestling over the course of a week, especially if it's a pay-per-view week, you're watching 15 hours of wrestling. There's plenty of storyline in that. And most people want it cut back and say, hey, the wrestling is what's important. Give us more matches. We're watching a 2-hour SmackDown, and sometimes there's only 3 matches in it.
Yeah, so,
A 2-hour show with only 3 matches is not enough. But and I understand.
Is that on average?
There's been plenty of times when there's been a SmackDown 2-hour show with 3 matches.
Crazy.
They'll have one match that goes for 40 minutes, which is nearly half the show.
That's crazy. That's way.
And then they'll have a match that ends up never happening. Like one person's coming down the ring and they get jumped before the match happens, so the match never happens. And that is storyline. That is the storyline that builds the match up to a bigger thing. You can pick their 2 greatest wrestlers and put them in a ring. But if there isn't some storyline build, I don't care as much. So they have one of them come down, they have the other one attack them, the match never happens, and then they fight later, and now there's a reason for them to fight. Yeah. But in doing stuff like that, it makes it where there's not a lot of matches on the shows.
That's true. You can almost say that it's almost oversaturation right now in terms of like these SmackDowns and these Raws. There's just too many. Because, like you said, they try to build up the pay-per-views. Obviously, the pay-per-views are the big money. SmackDown, Raw make good money too. But, the pay-per-views are where they make, I think, a large chunk of money. And they are always just building towards that. Like, the worst is, like, watching a SmackDown and a Raw right before, like, a SummerSlam or right before a WrestleMania for me. Because it's just kind of like, nothing's going to happen here, guys. I mean, it's like nothing's real. Ooh, it's a title match. No, guys, it's not.
Someone's going to get disqualified, and they're going to have to do this later.
Yeah. Or, he's going to win because the big match is actually at WrestleMania. So
predictability. I get what you're saying.
And I agree for the most part with that, but they have over the last year started throwing curveballs. They've had titles change hands.
Right before
not on
the
TV
day
in a house show. They've had a title change hands at the pay-per-view, the Raw right before the pay-per-view, and then the match was still for the title. It was just now he was trying to get it back. So
it's the same people. Sure, you can do that.
Yeah, they'll do stuff. They'll make I think one time, and I'm not sure exactly when it was for the title, and he lost the title, and so they made the match a 3-way match when originally it was supposed to be 2. So there are things that they do to try to keep it spontaneous. Yeah. But for the most part, you're right. That tends to be one of the most boring shows.
They've added some shit that like I've never seen before. Like I was watching, I don't know, a year or two ago, maybe even longer, and they had like I guess they did a match, and you'll probably be able to tell us more about this, Spectrum. Okay. But they had a match. I think it was Dolph Ziggler. It might have been. He had some kind of briefcase, like he was able to enact a match anytime.
That is the best part of wrestling right now, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I saw that. I was like, that's kind of cool. So he wins this match, and again, you just go ahead and explain it because I'm not gonna do it just. I love how we've totally gotten away from Glow.
Yeah, exactly.
I
know. We'll get back to Glow. We'll go ahead to Glow after this. This last thing.
The Money in the Bank was originally something that they did as one match once a year at WrestleMania, and then it became so popular they made a pay-per-view based on it. It's called the Money in the Bank pay-per-view. And for a while, they did as many as 2, and then now they do it where there are 2. And this year they did a men and a women's. And what it is it's a ladder match, and they hang a briefcase over the ring, and inside of it is a contract for a world championship match. Right. And right now, Mr. Money in the Bank, the male is Baron Corbin, and the female, the first ever, is Carmella. And what it is they can cash that contract in for a title match at any time. So the champion doesn't have to be ready. In most cases, I don't know exact numbers, but we're between 10 and 15 times it's been cashed in now. In most cases, it's cashed in after the champion just defended their title or after a guy just won the title for the first time. So it creates a lot of situations where you get, like, that's cool. For example, Jeff Hardy wins his first ever world championship and then immediately gets cashed in and loses it. And he's like, first time champion. People have been waiting for this for 15 years, and he held it for 30 seconds. And it creates this heat on the guy who cashed it in. People hate him now because they took it from the pay-per-view that's coming up this weekend. We're probably going to see the same situation. The current champion is Jinder Mahal. Shinsuke Nakamura is this New Japan guy. This is one of the guys that everyone loves that I can't stand. He's coming in. He's going to fight Jinder Mahal. He's going to win the championship. It's going to happen. Now, what the question mark is Baron Corbin going to then cash it in and take it from him 30 seconds after winning his first WWE championship? I believe he is. So this is the whole mystery of that. Yeah, Every once in a while, they give it to a good guy who decides to say, I'm going to cash it in next week at the pay-per-view or whatever. Right. And that's boring. So they almost always give it to a bad guy so that they can cash it in.
So my point was that they are doing different things, like even today. Like that I thought was really funny because I saw a dude get, like, he won by decision or something, but he was unconscious in the ring. Like, he's just laying there. And all of a sudden, the music comes on. The guy that got it. He runs out there, lays on him, tap 1, 2, 3, and then he gets him. He's like, I'm the champion. Everyone's like, what the fuck is going on? But it's fucking hilarious, right? Like, it's like a get out of jail free card, but I get to be the champion free card. You know?
It's definitely
so little things to make it interesting.
Yeah, they've created different situations for people. There was years where a first-time champion would become a champion. Someone like Chris Jericho or Kurt Angle would win their first title from someone like The Rock or Stone Cold Steve Austin, and no one would believe it. No one would get it. This just isn't right. They're great, but they're not Steve Austin great. How does that work? And then for the 6 to 8 months, they had to have them win by chicanery.
Yeah,
I don't even. Yeah, just because you couldn't believe these could beat these guys. And now they've created a bunch of different situations where these guys could win their first title and you can believe it. And then it's just a matter of giving him time with the belt so you believe he can be a winner. It's a better a better thought process put into it. They'll put people in tables matches where all you have to do is put your opponent through a table and you win the match. No pinning is required. Well, now when Sheamus is on the top rope and John Cena gets up them to suplex him through the table, and Sheamus elbows him and John Cena falls backwards through the table, Sheamus gets his first ever championship by beating John Cena. But did he beat John Cena? Not really. John Cena kind of slipped through a table. So it's one of the ways they've created to get the upper mid card into the main event and believable as a champion.
I mean, the whole point, I guess, is that it's really hard to write very original things these days, compared to back when they hired me. Yeah.
He's like, I'll get in there.
I wrote my own league of storyline. And
like I said before, I mean, there's still plenty, people can do, and like just even remove yourself from WWE and just wrestling. I bet there's even more, that people could do with. Again, XFL. I thought actually XFL was a pretty decent idea that just was maybe still before its time, or just wasn't executed totally properly. But
it was never gonna overtake actual football.
It doesn't have to overtake actual football, though, Nick. Like, it just has to get its own niche.
And the reason why is because it was Vince McMahon, and he wanted to overtake actual football.
Yeah. So if he didn't want to,
it would just have a second, But I thought it was brilliant, and people don't realize how many of the XFL's unique things the NFL has now incorporated.
Right.
They've taken into their own. So, I mean, it was a bust in terms of for Vince and a financial, but for football in general, it was a good thing. It brought us a lot of stuff that we didn't have before.
Yeah.
So
there's a good documentary on that too. Like, it's either ESPN, E60s or 30, but I forget which one. But I think it's an ESPN documentary from the XFL. You guys are going to check that out.
Yeah.
But anyways, getting back to Glow, we should.
So back to Glow. So
back.
now let's digress backwards. What do you guys think season 2 is going to be about? Do you think it's going to be about just maintaining the status quo as it is now, or is it going to be more about kind of the downfall? Is it going to be the beginning of the end season 2, or do you think that's more of a season 3 kind of thing? And what are your predictions for it ending? Because it has an ambiguous ending in real life. How do you guys think they're going to end it in the show?
I'm actually
they have to take it to the logical conclusion of the ending of Glow, right?
But it's kind of like it was kind of like what Adam was alluding to before, though. Is like it seems like there was other things going on, and given that this is a dramatization, I mean, you have the leeway and flexibility to do anything. Whatever's most entertaining. Yes. So it could be like he ended up sleeping with too many women or too many of the wrestlers, and the wife like literally does. Like, you need to end this now, or I'm going to leave you, type of thing, and that's how it ends.
Yeah.
But they could over dramatize it in any way they want. So Spectrum, you said you're worried?
I'm worried. I actually like it how it is. I don't really want to see a season 2.
Yeah.
I know they're gonna do it.
They already said it, right? I think they might have. Yeah,
I believe they already announced that there's going to be a season 2. I don't know where they go from here, unless season 2 is literally the downfall of Glow and they only do 2 seasons. And that's my thing. I think it's too early to end it.
Yeah.
And so I think they're going to do 3 or 4 and have it end at 3 or 4.
I hope it's 3.
The middle seasons seem pointless. We can bring in another character or 2. We can dramatize some of the characters leaving, but I don't know what you're going to tell, really.
Somebody's going to break a bone.
Well, I think season 2 is all about really solidifying the fact that it is successful. Like just kind of building this thing up. So whenever it does finally stop, then you feel that investment from all the characters and maybe what it means to each of them. Like what does the future look like? And like to your point earlier, Ella, where like all these women got screwed, some of them didn't get screwed. Some of them actually parlayed it into wrestling careers. There's actually one or two of them that turned
very few of them. You're right. There are like 1 or 2 of them that were able to continue on, but for the I feel like 90% of the ladies though felt like they had been shafted, and a lot of them it seemed like they hadn't gotten past it. Like that this has been something they've carried with them for years and years and years in their life, that they had this thing and then it was just taken from them suddenly and they have no idea why they looked like a lot of them had no closure with it. Well, like that was the thing, was like closure. There's no closure.
I think a lot of it had to do, I mean, it's not so much that I feel like they felt like, you know, that Glow itself or whoever, I forget the name of the guy that was managing it and everything, or the investor or whatever. But I think it's more just that they felt like this was that once in a lifetime opportunity for them, you know, or maybe they feel that people have in their lives, and then that was just it for them, because a lot of these women didn't have anything going for them going into this. That's one of the reasons why they were, you know, brave enough, as you were talking before, to go and try something so new and unproven and things like that. So I think it was more of just like, oh, it sucks, like what could have been, you know, is more of the feel I got from most of the women, outside of the ones that are actually permanently injured, you know, like their backs are just completely, you know, they're just handicapped because of all those years of wrestling and not wrestling properly. But the other women, I just feel that they interpreted it that way. Like, it's just like, man, if this thing would have just continued on, we you know, this could have just set my life. But instead, you know, this is that once in a lifetime thing that just didn't work for me, and that was it. That's it for me.
Yeah, I put it in the context of like Twitch ending. Like if Twitch were just to be like,
that's a perfect
Twitch is like,
example.
Sorry guys, like
sorry, perfect
guys,
example.
Twitch done. You know, this is just there's you know, no explanation. Have a good day. You know, I'd be like, what the fuck am I gonna do? You know, like
there'd be hundreds
I
of
was
thousands.
Just gonna say, I had a job. I was a bartender, and one Sunday night, it was the best job I ever had. I was making more money than I ever had. Everything was going great. And then one Sunday night, they said, hey, one week they said, we're having a meeting Sunday night. We came in for a meeting Sunday night. We thought it was going to be about a cleanup. And they said, take everything you got home with you. We're locking the doors and we're not coming back tomorrow. And we were like, what the
fuck?
You know, and that's, you know, that sucks. But was I really screwed? No, I mean, I don't know that. I mean, again, yes, they were, some of the things of them was screwed, but what were they, you know, I don't really feel bad for them that they got their time on TV in the spotlight and, you know, doing something that wasn't McDonald's, you know, and you know, oh well.
Yeah, but hold on. But the characters like Mount Fiji, who did end up with long-term, you know, disabilities because of the time that they put in, and then having sort of the carpet pulled out from under them in terms of ending it. I feel like that's really unfair to do something to somebody. It's bad business.
It kind of sucks, and I agree. But now we're getting into. I mean, we can go into the NFL and the concussions thing, and everyone has different opinions than that. I've never. I don't want anyone to be hurt. I don't want anyone to be, whether it be Glow or NFL or boxers or whatever. But you're getting paid money to do this, and you know, I mean, you can't tell me that they didn't know jumping around a ring and landing and getting slammed, there was opportunities to injure themselves currently and later in life. They took those risks, and they took the paychecks for that. I don't. And
we're not talking about football players who get paid $1 million. We're talking about people who were probably working as waitresses and things like that before this opportunity. Yeah,
and I can't imagine they were getting paid much better than that.
No, I agree. But if someone came up to me today and said, "Hey, do you want to be in my wrestling ring on your off time from your job? It pays $250 a month," and I was like, "It's an extra paycheck."
Sure,
I mean, I'm taking that risk. I am aware of it. I am aware that jobs just disappear at times. Sure, maybe they didn't expect it to happen because it seemed to be going so well, but you know, that's life. It's not. They're not the first person to lose a job when.
Yeah, but you can still be sympathetic to that. Like you can't just say because this happened to other people that this, you know, and these people made these choices that by dropping them like that that's okay behavior because this happens to other people. It's just life. You know, like there's a right way and a wrong way to lay people.
I'm sympathetic in the way I'm sympathetic across the board. I'm sympathetic in the way that people should be sympathetic for me that my bar closed. I feel bad in that sense, but it's the same level of sympathy I give to everyone, not more so because they were on TV or because they put their bodies through whatever. I mean, that's the choice you took. You took that choice, and it sucks that it didn't work out for you, just like it sucks it didn't work out for me. Or if Twitch closes tomorrow, it sucks that you guys are like,
we're going to Mixer.
You're going to mix. There's other options now.
I don't know, man. I feel bad for some of these ladies. I don't know. I feel bad for the whole situation, how it ended. Like I don't feel bad because they got involved in the choices they made and all that stuff. Yes, they chose to be there. They knew the risk. They were doing something experimental, blah, 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 blah. But what I'm saying is that they could have been treated better for sure when it was ending. I think they could have been given more information. Because like I said, when you watch that documentary, it seems like none of them know why it ended. Like nobody can give you an answer on why it ended. And the fact that nobody can give you an answer why it ended means that nobody was told why it was ended. Yeah. And that means something shady, something.
I mean, as an employer these days.
Yes, I guess that I'm a little hardened by having literally the same experience. I have still to this day have no clue why Poblano's closed. It just closed. I lost my $4,000 a month paycheck. Boom, just gone. And I was just like, well, I could have worked at that place. It was a chain. I knew it was going to survive, but I didn't.
Though there's a difference in like, for me anyways, there's a difference in like fame and notability and stuff. Like it's not just going to a restaurant job where people aren't there to cheer for you and get to know you as a person.
Right.
You're not building, like a following. You're not becoming a celebrity. There's certain things that come with fame that are different than the situation you're talking about. Whereas some people, when they start to get fame, they start to feed off of that. They start to get confidence. They start to believe that they can do certain things. And then when that is taken from them abruptly, that has psychological effects that aren't the same as from what you're talking about. But I agree. I think we're getting off topic.
Yeah, I mean, it's just general sympathy. I think that.
I mean, you're wrong, and it's fine. It's just your opinion to be wrong, and that's. You don't care about women, all right, Spectrum? No, that's what this is.
Absolutely. Hey, my viewers call me wrestling racist. Now they can call me wrestling sexist too.
Let me ask you about that. So the welfare check thing, you made an allusion to the fact that that's still happening today in wrestling. I know we're pulling away from Glow like so often, but I'm curious, is that sort of generalization, stereotyping still happening today in wrestling, and is that acceptable because it's wrestling?
Most of it, okay, first of all, before I get into that, I'm going to slight tangent, I'll make it quick. There's a divide in the community between what is called a mark and what is called a smark, and I kind of talked to you a little about this, Ello.
Yes.
And what a mark generally is and think of it like a con game. Your mark is who you're going after. It's who you're trying to convince, who you're trying to steal from. The marks, for years, everyone was a mark. You were an audience member and you bought what WWE sold you. Then the internet came along and the marks became smart. And so smart stands for like smart mark. And what it is they know all the background information. They get to see all the federations. They get to see the contract negotiations. They know everything. So the reason I bring this up is because there's a divide between the people that watch and enjoy the product and the people that want the product to do what they want them to do. They don't care that someone else writes and someone else owns it. You need to make this person the champion because that's who I want to be a champion. Not in the old days, it was, just watch the product and buy the merchandise, and whoever sells the most merchandise, they get to be the champion essentially. And that's still the way it works, but the smarks don't like it that way.
So it's like passive viewership versus like active viewership.
Exactly.
Or they used to just be okay with sitting here and going, all right, I accept that Hogan is in the NWO now and blah, 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 blah. So now there's people who are going like, no, it needs to go down this storyline. And
exactly, right. So from that standpoint, is it acceptable? Right now, the current WWE champion he's actually Canadian, but he's from he has an Indian birthright, he's heritage.
Okay.
He looks Indian, and so he's
like Native American Indian or like dot or feather. I don't know if that's
dot.
That's
dot.
Insensitive.
That's probably insensitive, but
gotcha, probably.
His name is
dot or feather, like Native American or Indian, like from India. Like
from Punjabi.
Yes,
I understand.
Okay. Gotcha. So they put the title, even though he's Canadian, they play up that aspect of his heritage. His name is Jinder Mahal. It's from Punjabi. And he wears a turban, and the music is that. And he became the champion mainly because that's their new market. That's where they're trying to build viewership. So they put the title on him. This guy was a jobber 3 months ago. Never won a match.
Explain jobber real quick for people who don't know.
A jobber, for people who doesn't, they do the job. They are out there, they wrestle a match, and they lose the match, and then they collect their paycheck and go home. They almost never win. That is their job, is to lose matches.
They're the fall guy
people, so that the other people. So, because if you always had two people that were supposed to be winners facing each other constantly, then no one wins. So you have to have jobbers so someone can lose.
You got to have losers so that the winners look. Yeah.
So he was a jobber until 3 months ago. They decided they're going towards the Indian market. Boom. He just out of nowhere wins the world title. And then from that day, he becomes hard Indian. Before that, he was, but he was never really talked about. They're trying to do that market. So then the next two opponents he has is, I'm American. It's not that we hate your heritage. It's that we hate that you suck. And the Indian guy is like, all you Americans suck. You don't like me because you're racist. And that's the current storyline that's going on, essentially, or was until just recently. And every mark just buys it. America's good. If you're not American, but you don't hate America, then you're fine. But if you come in and you talk bad about America, boo. And every smart's like, this is 2017. Let's get away from that bullshit.
Right.
Which I call myself a narc because I'm a neutral. I'm in the middle because I agree with both sides on things. Yeah. That's where I'm very smarky. I agree. We don't need that anymore. It's kind of racist and doesn't need to be done. You can write better stories.
It's almost like playing off of the social racist overtones.
We're gonna get into those crazy political.
Hold on, but this is
headed
all about welfare queen.
But here's the thing is that I think in order to appreciate, like a show like Glow that's about wrestling, understanding wrestling and sort of the vibe is important too. So that when you have characters like Welfare Queen, you're not just going, oh, how racist, how stereotypical. You're having to understand that this is acceptable in these terms because wrestling, like I said earlier, is so exaggerated that having these exaggerated characters, even if they're not status quo or even socially acceptable, are in this realm. I think it's important to kind of identify that and kind of explore that a little bit. It's not totally about Glow, but I think it's important to know.
Well,
so it's not really about us. Let me just finish this thought. So it's not really about like racism. It's still doing that whole USA versus the world kind of thing, but it's almost like they're approaching it like it's racism, right? Like it's almost like it's piggybacking on that sort of controversy. So it's nationalism is what it really is at the end of the day, but it's sort of kind of all rolled into that kind of interest we have in it. But anyways,
for me,
J-Man's like, I don't even want to talk about it.
Well, I mean, for me, it's just like, WWE for me is no different than when we talk about any TV series or any movies. I mean, it's just entertainment. We all know it's entertainment at this point. There's no reality aspect to it. Outside of like Total Divas or something, the actual reality show that's about the wrestlers, the actual broadcast is all scripted and to a degree. Well, not scripted, but it's entertainment. It's not supposed to be real.
Yeah.
And
are there still people out there that believe, Anthony, that it's real? Like they still you just can't.
I don't think so. Yeah, I get people come in all the time that say, wrestling's fake, right? As if they think we think it's real. But anyone who watches or is in part of the community is aware it's scripted, and you use the right word. Scripted is the way we talk about it. We don't use the word fake. We say predetermined and scripted.
It's predetermined more than it is scripted. I mean, the wrestling, that's the cool part about wrestling, right? Is that it's really like freestyle dancing with just an outcome that ends up working out. That's what's so impressive.
The storylines are scripted. The
yeah.
wrestling matches are predetermined.
Yeah. But everything in between is
but that's what I say. I love how Chan said it's just like any other TV show, because that's my response when they say that. I ask them, what's your favorite show? And they tell me, Walking Dead. And I say, do you know there is not a zombie apocalypse going on right now? Do you realize that Rick wasn't actually a cop? It was a show. It was all scripted.
Wait a second.
Holy cow! It's on TV and it's scripted, and that's
and so the point I was trying to going towards with all this is that, so what if there's a bunch of racists over? I mean, there's a lot of movies that are completely. We have the movie that won an Oscar this year is like completely about racism and crazy things like that.
24.
So yeah, so for me, I don't feel like it. I mean, I think wrestling's judged on a different.
Were you talking about Moonlight?
Yeah. Well, okay. I guess Moonlight. Yeah, Moonlight had some racism in it, right?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Every
Not really.
Well, no, it definitely. I mean, I think that homosexuality was the focus, but racism definitely played it.
I don't think there's a single white character in that whole movie.
That's why it's racist.
Okay, maybe it wasn't the best example, but my point is that it's used heavily in the movie genre, and I feel like people don't judge that. Like it's like, oh, it's artistic. It's completely fine if we're doing that. That's not supposed to be representing reality because it's completely art. But when it comes to WWE,
but if they couldn't come out, they couldn't come out with a welfare queen today. Like
they could come out with a welfare queen.
I mean, but I feel like that would be too. Like I feel like it's there, but it's subtler. Like you couldn't come out with like the welfare queen and have a black woman up there just watching TV and being lazy and shit.
Yeah, I think
it can't be that.
The two of you, what you talk about. Yeah, you could have the character exist, but you'd have to be subtler about calling her that. Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know. I don't know how this all ties in. I'm lost in this conversation now.
Exactly. The point is, I guess like wrestling is judged on a little bit of a different, it's measured differently than other art forms, and especially in the entertainment world. So, but anyways, I think we've already talked enough about Glow. So why don't we get to talking about next week and what we're going to talk about next week, which is a movie that Diction suggested, Predestination, which I'd never heard of until you mentioned it. So
yeah, me neither.
It's a good one. It's one of the better time travel movies. It explores some really interesting paradoxes.
Oh man, time travel is always tough for me. Like really, really tough for me. So I'm excited to watch this one because anything that is it one of those things where like they make you think differently about time travel?
Yes, very much
cool.
So.
Oh, okay, really?
Cool.
Okay.
I'm totally okay with that. I hate the implementation of time travel today in most like shows and movies and stuff like that. But I do enjoy the look at time travel and the paradoxes that can approach that. Like that interests me, but I feel like it's done so horribly usually that I'm usually turned off by
I think you're gonna enjoy Predestination then.
Okay, cool. All right.
Yeah,
I mean, I saw the trailer last night. It looks interesting for sure. So yeah, anyways, check that out, guys. Go and watch it. It's on Netflix for sure, right? And
yeah, for those of you who don't know what we're doing here, it's your first time. We've been going on about wrestling and Glow and all that good stuff. Basically, what we're doing is the show is spoiler alert, and what we do is at the end of a show, we give you guys something kind of like a book club to go and watch, and then meet back with us next week and then talk about it. So this week, Predestination is going to be our quote unquote book. You're going to go watch Predestination, and the next week join us back and we'll have a discussion about it and probably time travel and all sorts of other things. As you've seen, our conversations are not strictly about it. It can
clearly
deviate.
as you've seen.
But for the most part, we try to keep it at least around it. So that's spoiler alert. So next week, feel free to join us if you want to take the time to watch Predestination, because that will be the topic of conversation.
Just so you know, Predestination is only DVD order only on Netflix. So if you guys are going to join them next week, put it in your queue now.
Or hold on, wait. I think
it's only DVD only. Seriously?
Yeah,
it's only like a couple years old.
On Netflix. If you rent it on Amazon, I'm pretty sure you can rent it for like $3.99 or something like that.
Oh,
like
you can just get it on Amazon and rent it from there.
So if you want to spend money, Amazon that way. If not, put it in your queue now so you get it in time.
Yeah,
that's a good idea.
Good point. All right, well, let's wrap up. Spectrum, man, thanks for joining us and give us the lowdown on just all the wrestling questions we had, because you had all the answers, which was really, really nice.
Yeah, he's got notes and shit. Like
I know, man, he's ready.
Weeks ago, he's been waiting for weeks for this.
Yeah, you can't even see it, but he actually has a Glow cloth banner that's the top left-hand corner of the camera right there. That's on his wall. So yeah, right there. It's like a big one.
I don't think that's a Glow one, but it's
not a Glow. It's a TNA knockout.
Oh, TNA Knockout. Okay, yeah. So
I decided to represent the women's division. I put the TNA Knockout up. I have a Mickey James one here. I'm wearing the Raw Women's Champions T-shirt. Yeah. I'm wearing the No Chin Music, which is a guy, but that's a big controversy. You guys don't even want to talk about that.
Okay.
He won the women's,
he won the women's champion.
He won the women's.
Yeah, they had the first ever Money in the Bank. We talked about it a little earlier. And he's the sidekick to the girl, and he's the one that took down the briefcase and dropped it to her. So everyone was up in arms about that because the first ever women's Money in the Bank was won by a guy.
Well, thanks so much, Spectrum, for joining us, guys. If you don't know who SpectrumDominus is, I'm going to allow him to go ahead and throw out his information now, if you would, please.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, where can people find you?
Tell us, where can we find you, man?
You can find me on Twitch at twitch.tv/SpectrumDominus. I have from there, if you just type !social in my chat, it'll show you my Twitter, my YouTube, my Facebook, all the social media stuff. I do a lot of most of my stuff I just do on Twitch and then highlight on Twitter, on YouTube. I am starting up podcasts. I'm just waiting on a mic, which I should be picking up today. And then I will be doing wrestling podcasts 2 to 3 times a week and a fantasy football contest podcast once a week. So
sounds good, man.
Get me out there.
Cool.
Diction? Yeah.
I Eat by Diction 1, twitch.tv/Eat by Diction 1. I stream video games and stuff. What up?
And he's not gonna always look like this.
Unfortunately, yeah.
Next week we'll be back. Next week we'll be back with hopefully the cam. Hello, how about
my
you?
My PC killed itself.
Yeah,
so
PC, exactly.
Other rig right now.
Yeah, we have all sorts of weird technical things today. I'm Ellohime. Hi guys. If you don't know who I am, you can find me on Twitter at Ellohime Twitch, which is ELLOHIME Twitch. Ellohime is also where you can find me on twitch.tv, so twitch.tv/Ellohime, and pretty much everything else is /Ellohime, like my YouTube. All that information's on my channel though, so you can get at it or
get at it. Yeah.
Chan, tell us about yourself, my friend.
You can find my Twitch and YouTube all at /ChanManV, all the VODs for this show, as well as other shows I do each and every week on Overwatch and Hearthstone and various other things you can find on youtube.com/ChanManV. You can follow me on Twitter too, ChanManV, and you can find this show as well as all my other podcasts on iTunes and Google Play and SoundCloud, soundcloud.com/ChanManV. And you just search for it. Search for Spoiler Alert. If you like spoiler alerts, guys, and you use iTunes, you listen to stuff on iTunes, just find us, leave us a nice rating. It just helps folks find Spoiler Alert whenever they're trying to type it into the search and whatnot. So it really helps us out. But that's going to be it, guys, for Spoiler Alert this week. So for SpectrumDominus, Eat My Diction 1, Ellohime, and myself, ChanManV, we'll see you next week.
Later.
Later.